Do you know the legend of Bloody Mary? Maybe you've heard it at a sleepover, during a Halloween party, or from a friend trying to scare you late at night. The ritual is simple: stand in front of a mirror in a dark room, sometimes with a candle, and repeat the name Bloody Mary several times. According to the legend, a ghostly woman will appear in the reflection. Some say she screams, others claim she scratches, curses, or attacks those who summon her. In certain versions, she appears covered in blood and carrying a dead child. In others, the face staring back at you begins to distort and melt. For generations, children and teenagers have terrified each other with this story. But where did it come from? Who was Bloody Mary? The answer isn't as straightforward as you might think. Some people believe the legend originated from a woman named Mary Wirt, who was supposedly executed for witchcraft. Others claim it came from the ghost of a young woman killed in a tragic accident. There are dozens of variations, but perhaps the most famous theory points to a real person, Queen Mary I of England, a woman whose reign was marked by religious persecution, political turmoil, and personal tragedy. A woman history remembers as Bloody Mary. Whether the legend truly came from her is impossible to prove, but once you learn her story, it's easy to understand why so many people made the connection. Ironically, the roots of the Bloody Mary ritual go back even further than Queen Mary herself. During the 19th century, young women in parts of Europe and North America practiced mirror rituals that were supposed to reveal their future husbands. One popular superstition claimed that if a girl walked backward up a staircase in a dark house while holding a candle and then glanced into a mirror, she would see the face of the man she was destined to marry. Or something much worse, if a skull appeared instead, it was said to mean that she would die before ever marrying. These mirror games combined fear, curiosity, and superstition. Over time, they evolved into darker versions, eventually becoming the Bloody Mary ritual people know today. But if Bloody Mary was inspired by Queen Mary I, who was she really? Mary was born on February 18, 1516 in Greenwich, England. She was the only surviving child of King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. As a young girl, Mary seemed destined for greatness. She was intelligent, well-educated, and widely respected throughout Europe. At the time, she was one of the most important princesses in Christendom. But her future would be shaped by one problem that haunted her father. Henry VIII desperately wanted a son. Catherine had given birth multiple times, but only Mary survived childhood. As the years passed and no male heir arrived, Henry became increasingly frustrated. Eventually, he convinced himself that his marriage was cursed in the eyes of God. Whether he genuinely believed this or simply wanted an excuse to pursue another woman is still debated by historians. What we do know is that Henry sought to end his marriage to Catherine and marry Anne Boleyn. The decision triggered one of the most significant political and religious crises in English history. When the Pope refused to grant the annulment Henry wanted, the king broke away from the Catholic Church entirely and established the Church of England. For Mary, the consequences were devastating. Her parents were separated. She was forbidden from seeing her mother, and she lost her status as a legitimate heir and was forced to acknowledge her father's new marriage. The princess who had once stood near the center of power suddenly found herself isolated and politically vulnerable. Then came another blow, and Boleyn gave birth, not to a son, but to a daughter, Elizabeth, the same Elizabeth who would later become one of England's most famous monarchs. Henry feared that disputes over succession could threaten the stability of his kingdom, and as a result, Mary was officially declared illegitimate, pushing her even further from the throne. Then, in 1536, Catherine of Aragon died. At the time, rumors spread rapidly. Some people suspected poison. Others whispered that Henry and Anne were secretly pleased by her death. Modern historians generally believe Catherine died of natural causes, but in an age without modern medicine, certainty was impossible. Mary was devastated. Her relationship with her father never fully recovered. As for Anne Boleyn, her own story ended in tragedy. Accused of adultery, incest, and treason, she was arrested and executed on Henry's orders. The Tudor court was a dangerous place. One day you could be among the most powerful people in England, and the next you could lose everything. For years, Mary's prospects seemed bleak, yet history has a habit of taking unexpected turns. In 1553, after a series of political struggles and succession crises, Mary achieved what many believed impossible. At the age of 37, she became Queen of England. But becoming queen was only the beginning. Mary faced enormous pressure to produce an heir, and without a child, the future of the Tudor dynasty remained uncertain. To strengthen her position, she married Philip of Spain, one of the most powerful rulers in Europe. The marriage was politically useful, but deeply unpopular among many English subjects. People feared foreign influence and worried that England would become subordinate to Spanish interests. Mary, however, finally had what she believed was a chance to secure her legacy. Only months after the wedding, she announced that she was pregnant. The news spread across Europe. Church bells rang, celebrations erupted, and diplomats rushed to send reports to foreign courts. For the first time in years, the future seemed secure. At first, everything appeared normal. Mary's menstrual cycles have stopped, she experienced nausea, and her body began to change. Doctors believed that she was expecting a child. Mary herself became increasingly convinced that she would soon give birth to the long-awaited heir. But not everyone believed her. Rumors quickly spread that the queen was not pregnant at all. Some claimed she was lying, others suggested she would secretly present another woman's child as her own. The gossip intensified with each passing month. Mary's abdomen continued to grow, and she reportedly claimed she could feel the baby moving. As the expected due date approached, preparations for the birth began. Following royal custom, Mary entered a period of confinement weeks before she was expected to deliver. The future of England seemed to rest entirely on what would happen next. One of Mary's advisors, Simon Renard, wrote that the fate of the kingdom depended upon the Queen's safe delivery. The pressure could hardly have been greater. Then the due date arrived and nothing happened. Days passed, then weeks, still no child. At first, doctors insisted there had been a mistake in calculating the date. The baby would come later, then later became even later. Soon, confusion began turning into panic. False reports spread across Europe. Some claimed Mary had already delivered a healthy son. Others claimed she had died during childbirth. The stories became increasingly bizarre. One rumor claimed that she had given birth to a shapeless mass of flesh. Another insisted the entire pregnancy had been a fraud from the very beginning. Inside the palace, nobody seemed to know what was happening. As time passed, Mary's abdomen began to shrink. The reality became impossible to ignore. There was no baby. Today, historians generally believed Mary suffered from a condition known as false pregnancy. Although rare, it can cause very real symptoms. A person's body may change, menstruation may stop, weight gain can occur, and even experienced physicians can be misled. For Mary, whose entire reign depended on producing an heir, the psychological pressure must have been immense. The humiliation was public. An entire continent had watched her wait for a child who never arrived. Yet while Mary struggled with this personal tragedy, another aspect of her reign was shaping her legacy: religion. England remained divided between Catholics and Protestants, and Mary was determined to restore Catholicism. In 1555, her government began a campaign of persecution against Protestants. Over the next several years, nearly 300 people were executed, many of them burned alive. Some were prominent religious leaders and others were ordinary citizens. The executions horrified many observers. Instead of strengthening Mary's authority, they damaged her reputation. Stories of the burnings spread throughout England and beyond. It was during this period that she acquired the nickname that history would never let her escape: Bloody Mary. Years later, Mary believed that she was pregnant once again, but this time few people believed her. No child arrived and her health continued to decline. On November 17, 1558, Mary died at the age of 42. The exact cause remains uncertain, though many historians suspect cancer or another serious illness. The crown passed to her half-sister, Elizabeth I. Under Elizabeth, England entered a new era, and Mary's reign was often remembered only through the lens of her failures and persecutions. But her transformation into legend had only just begun. Over the centuries, history blended with folklore. The queen associated with religious executions became a supernatural figure. The woman who desperately wanted a child became a ghost carrying a dead baby. The ruler known as Bloody Mary became the spirit said to haunt mirrors. Whether the modern legend truly originated from Queen Mary I is impossible to know for certain. Like most folklore, the story evolved over generations, absorbing pieces of history, rumor, and imagination along the way. But even today, children still stand in dark bathrooms, staring into mirrors and whispering her name. Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. Few of them know the real woman behind the legend, a queen whose life was filled with loss, controversy, and tragedy. And perhaps that is why the story has survived for so long. What do you think? Was Queen Mary I the true inspiration behind Bloody Mary, or did the legend come from somewhere else entirely? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.